Hi, it's Steve with Coin Stuff I Like, bringing you a Moonlight Mint Stuff I Like video. I want to share with you a couple of new pickups from Dan Carr's Moonlight Mint. Um, so, without much more introduction than that, let's get into it. Um, the first one is the 1878 trade dollar concept fantasy piece. And as you can see, it has a trade dollar obverse and a Morgan dollar reverse with the CC mint mark. So it's a Carson City 1878 concept trade dollar fantasy piece. This one here, again, you recognize the trade dollar obverse and Morgan dollar reverse. Well, in 1878, they actually produced both a trade dollar and a Morgan dollar at Carson City Mint. The mintage of the trade dollar was January and February. It minted 97,000. But then the Bland-Allison Act came into being at on February 28th, 1878, which brought the circulating silver dollar back into existence. So the trade dollar was discontinued, at least at the Carson City Mint, as of the February production. I think San Francisco is the same way. But they had about 44,148 in their vaults and were ordered to melt those in July. That's of the trade dollars. And so consequently, they're very difficult to find because they melted a bunch of them and then the others, lost, damaged, sent overseas and ultimately lost there. The bottom line is the estimated survival of an 1878 trade dollar is about 250 to 325 coins altogether. So what happened is with the Bland-Allison Act, it brought the circulating dollar back into existence. So the Morgan dollar went into mintage, and Carson City didn't get their dies for producing the Morgan dollar until April. So starting in April, they started cranking them out, and they had over 2 million by the end of the year in 1878. And it's a pretty high survival rate. You can get some pretty good examples. About 125 to 150,000 survive in all grades. So I really like what Dan did here, where it's sort of like, oh, maybe we got our dies, the fantasy part, and maybe we got our dies mixed up, and so we did a trade dollar obverse die, Morgan dollar reverse die, and produced a couple. So that's what we have, this fantasy piece, and it is beautiful. This is an MS69. So far, Dan and the Moonlight Mint have produced 241 to date. There'll probably be a few more. These are not being sold on the Moonlight Mint sales page, but on another seller. I'll put the link for that if you're interested in getting this or the other one I'm about to present in a bit. I'll put the link for that seller in the description of this video. But nevertheless, this is a cool piece to have, which sort of captures that changeover in 1878 with, as you know, I like Carson City stuff, with the Carson City Mint mark. So this is not the first time Dan has produced Carson City related fantasy pieces. And I just want to go over a few of them that he has. So in 2020, he produced this really beautifully an elaborate obverse and reverse sesquicentennial piece, and I'm really happy to have it. There's only 88 of these minted on silver, on a silver planchet, and it marked the sesquicentennial of the Carson City Mint in 2020. Carson City Mint opening in 1870. Then in 2021, a third party had some vintage canceled Carson City Mint dies from 1884. Remember, there's a number of buried, canceled Carson City dies that were found in what is currently the back parking lot area at the old Carson City Mint and Nevada State Museum. When they were excavating for that parking lot, they found a bunch of dies, and somehow some of these dies ended up in private hands, and this die pair 37, marked on the shanks of those canceled or vintage dies, were used to overstrike Morgan dollars in 2021 with a mintage of 199 that were overstruck on Morgan dollars with a standard reading edge. This is a MS69 version. Again, original Carson City dies for the Morgan dollars. That was really cool. These are some of my favorite Dan Carr pieces, actually. And I've got others of various varieties, and I've actually made a video on that. I'll put the link to that video in the description of this video. Dan, in 2022, did 1874 CC seated Liberty dollars. And the seated Liberty dollars were discontinued as of 1873. That was the last of the Carson City seated Liberty dollars, and it's the one that's missing from my Carson City collection. But he produced a 1874 CC seated Liberty dollar fantasy piece, and what you did is you submitted the coin to be overstruck. You wanted seated Liberty dollars. So this was overstruck over an 1872 Philadelphia Mint seated Liberty dollar. And so originally 1872 seated Liberty dollar, now an 1874 fantasy CC dollar. So that was really cool in 2022. 2023, he produced the filler for the missing modern production of the modern production of the Morgan dollars, and so he had to wait until 2022 expired to confirm that the U.S. Mint was not producing one of the modern Morgans. And as you know, 2021, 2023, they produced them, and then so on. But 2022 is a blank year because of quote unquote hard to find planchets, et cetera, silver shortage, et cetera. So in 2023, early 2023, once there was no 2022 from the U.S. Mint, Dan produced this one, 2022 CC Morgan dollar, which I'm happy to get. There's 393 of these that were minted. So all these Moonlight mints are typically low mintage collector pieces. This was overstruck on a standard Morgan dollar, genuine Morgan dollar as well. Then last year, 2024, for the same third-party retailer, Dan produced this 1887 CC concept dollar. And I've done a video on this as well, but this one is really a cool piece. As you know, there are no There's no silver dollars coined. There's nothing coined at Carson City Mint between 1886 through 1888. So this is a nice one, a fantasy date and a fantasy piece with a concept, um, uh, obverse and reverse. Really cool piece. 467 of those were minted. And that brings us to this current fantasy piece, which I've already presented to you, which has a mintage of 241 so far. Probably some more will be minted. My guess. My guess. So really cool. And that sort of winds up Dan Carr's Moonlight Mint production of Carson City related fantasy items. And there's many more that are related to the ones I've shown you. But let's go into the other recent pickup, and this is the Pan Pacific Exposition silver dollar. So this one here is overstruck on Morgan silver dollar, and it is a fantasy piece. Still has the 1915 in Roman numerals, same obverse, same reverse, except for the original. This is pattern or is a fantasy piece based on the $50 gold piece produced at the San Francisco Mint in 1915. Now this one's extremely hard to get. There's only 483 minted, and there's an estimated survival of 362. And if you want one that is, say, a MS63, you're looking at probably $80,000 ish. So very, very pricey. And if I ever spend that much money on a coin, it's going to be an 1873 CC Seat of Liberty dollar. But this has always been one of my favorite coins to look at, and I'm very happy to have an example of the art involved with that $50 gold piece on a silver dollar overstrike, with the change of $50 to silver dollar, and the S mint mark is not appearing here as well. So really nice couple of pieces that I recently got, and as you know, I love Moonlight Mint Dan Carr stuff, and these are a couple ones that fit my my collection very nicely. One fitting into my extended Carson City collection of Moonlight Mint fantasy pieces, and the other capturing one of the, in my opinion, one of the iconic gold pieces that has been produced, and one that I would never own, but now I have at least the art of the coin on a silver dollar overstrike. So thank you for watching. Thank you for letting me share these with you. Remember, buy stuff you like, but be careful about what you buy. We'll catch you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.